Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek podcast.
They aren't supernatural, but they are monsters. The Federation teaches that if we can find a way to empathize with an enemy, then they can one day become our friends. They're wrong. Some things in this universe are just plain evil. Have you ever seen eyes that are both dead and hungry at the same time? To them, humans are just walking feed bags of flesh and bone and jelly. They're born to trigger primitive, ancient terror in warm-blooded species. We are prey. When they hunt, they're unrelenting. The truth is, plenty of people have seen the Gorn. They just don't live long enough to talk about it.
All right. Be vigilant. Get creative. You're the best of Starfleet. We survive this by working together. A moment, Lieutenant. How you holding up?
The enemy doesn't care about my feelings, Captain, so I don't waste my time having any.
Well, that may be true, but it's not looking that way to the crew.
With all due respect, you know me well enough to know that I don't care what the crew thinks. I've always been blunt, that's just who I am.
Direct, looking at outcomes, not emotion.
Exactly.
But right now, your job isn't just about orders, it's about hope. Belief can be the difference between victory and defeat. Get a crew to believe in miracles, and I just give you one.
I will make that adjustment, but I will not lie to them.
The best miracles are born from truth.
Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 4, Memento Mori, is that how you pronounce it?
Oh, is that what it's called? Yeah, that's how I would pronounce it.
Yeah.
I would say Memento Mori.
Are we on Episode 35?
Episode 35.
What are we episoding on?
I have no idea. I stopped keeping track of the episode count for the podcast.
Yeah, well, you asked me that earlier, so I was just wondering if you happen to know.
It might be 135.
Oh, what 135? Yeah, that's right.
That might be
that makes more sense.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, okay, 135. Sorry, that's what I meant. Patrick is not here, so
you're sitting in his seat over there.
I'm sitting in his seat.
You're at the Master Pro board.
I'm at the Master Pro. He's my Master Pro dad. Patrick is my Master Pro dad. What are you, Jesse?
I'm still Jesse.
You're still Jesse. So I got to figure out how you do. I got to figure out how you do all this guidance, all this stuff where you supposed to do the things to be all cool while you do the things. You know?
Oh yeah.
So welcome to Star Trek: Strange New World, Season 1, Episode 4, Memento Mori, a brand new episode of Star Trek: Strange New World. Jesse, what'd you think of this episode?
Well, I liked it. I thought it was a very good episode.
I liked this episode too. I thought it was a lot of fun. As far as Easter eggs go, I'm not the kind of person that's really going to be able to talk about that too much. That was kind of Patrick's role. He was good at the Easter egg stuff. He was good at all the lore and the Easter egg stuff. And I forget stuff all the time. So I don't know. I mean, this is a Gorn-heavy episode, obviously. It's about the Gorn.
There's not a lot of Gorn-heavy episodes.
Yeah, so it's interesting that the Strange New World seems to be turning in the direction of... the Gorn is the Gorn going to be the main, the big bad or whatever you call him?
Well, I don't know.
Because in TNG it was,
they might not
Borg.
have a singular big bad.
Yeah, they might not have a singular one, but TNG was, the Borg. What was it in Deep Space Nine? I guess the Cardassians. Kinda.
Yeah, and the Dominion.
And the Dominion. Then Enterprise were those, the Suliban, right? The Suliban?
Yeah, and some kind of Zindi or something.
Yeah, Zindi. Oh yeah, what was the Star Trek Enterprise was? I always thought of the Suliban.
There were some kind of aliens.
Yeah,
I actually haven't watched that show, that part of that show. So
maybe it wasn't the Suliban. Maybe it was the Zindi.
Probably shouldn't speak on the Zindi.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it was the Zindi that was like the. You know, and here we go. See, Patrick would be here to sort of confirm these kinds of suspicions for us.
Yeah, he kind of helps move things along a little bit.
Yeah. So, but we won't dwell on that too much.
Floundery here. Yeah, and like, you know, Picard had a different kind of thing to accomplish each season. So did Discovery.
Yeah,
but I don't necessarily think they'd have a big bad because it's sort of episodic. You know, they'll have they'll have different adventures that might not connect into one overarching kind of badness.
Right.
We might not see too much out of the Gorn again because
the Gormagander.
Maybe they'll have another episode where they just say Gormagander.
The Gornagander.
Gornagander.
Well, TNG was largely episodic, and they had the Borg, so you know the
Borg kept coming back. So yeah, I mean maybe.
I mean, and you've got La'an, who's like, you know, she already got that whole backstory about her situation.
She's got a lot of Gorn trauma.
Yeah, like Major Kira had the Cardassian trauma, and that was the theme. Now DS9 was kind of a mix, episodic, and then I guess as the seasons went on, it became a little bit more
I guess it was
serialized.
like towards the end.
Yeah, towards the end with the whole Dominion stuff, but they still kept that theme. So I think they paid a little bit more attention to character relations in DS9 than they did in TNG in that sense. It would make sense that they would stick to this Gorn. I found it interesting. Speaking of how you're saying is episodic, I thought it was interesting that they're still doing episode recaps, and I was wondering, like, what's the point of episode recaps in this show? It's like a recent artifact of everyone being used to serialized television.
Right.
Now they feel they need to include recaps all the time.
It gives you a hint of what happens in the episode based on like the characters it's going to focus on or something, because it always shows you stuff that's happened to those characters and other.
Right. And the thing is, that's a good point, and because that's generally what they do with the plot in the serialized, in the recaps, they sort of like, this is what plot we're continuing off of. And in this case, it's more it's, I guess, more of like, these are the characters that we're going to talk about. But it just seems largely unnecessary, you know? But I understand why they do it, because everyone expects it.
Then yeah, why would you need to?
Right. So that's why I say it's kind of an artifact of people being used to serialized television.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah. So it begins, they need to deliver an atmospheric processor upgrade to Finibus 3.
Finibus 3.
Yeah.
It even sounds made up.
Yeah, Finibus. Makes me think of Finnegan. Or
somebody like it came through and they were like, Finibus 3, who's ever heard of that? It's like, I don't know. We're just going to go there with a fucking Enterprise.
They should just go back to doing the old school, let's call them Gorzons and Blarsnargs, you know, the old school way of naming space creatures.
Right, yeah.
They are Garzors. They are Zingdongs. They are Twinktwows.
Twinktwows.
Yeah, they're Twinktwows.
I don't remember Twinktwows.
What about they're cookie cake zors?
Ooh, that sounds all right.
Yeah, cookie cake zors.
They have like a couple of layers.
They're multi-layered, like an onion.
Some cream inside.
Yeah, lots of cream inside for sure. Lots of cream inside, layered like an onion.
Like a vanilla.
Would you eat a cookie cake zor?
Cookie cake zor, yeah.
That tasted like an onion.
No, not like an onion.
Because it's got many layers like an onion. Do you like onions?
I like onions, but I'm not going to eat a cookie cake zor that's onion flavored.
Why not?
Because I want to eat like a cake flavor.
Would you drink mashed potato and gravy soda?
No.
They make it. You can buy mashed potato and gravy soda.
Well, just because you can buy something.
But I mean, you know, what's the difference whether you're drinking it like it was a sody pop or if you're eating it like it was a sweetie dessert?
I think there's a big difference. I mean, first of all, it's not a sweetie dessert. Mashed potatoes
are yummy.
Yeah, but it's not sweetie dessert.
But you drink it like a soda, so it's not tasting sweet. It's like a refreshing. Haven't you ever wanted to drink gravy?
Well, you can drink gravy if you don't have to make it into a soda. Just drink gravy.
Yeah,
it's already fluid.
Was there that joke about They thought she was back when Yo Mama jokes were like in fashion. There was that one that was like.
You mean they're not in fashion anymore?
Yeah, I don't think so. For some reason.
Yeah, I guess not.
It doesn't. It doesn't seem like they would be.
It's not very woke or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the deal with it. It was Your Mama's so fat that she thought gravy was a beverage. And so, well, it is a beverage. It's a soda pop with mashed potatoes.
It's like a condiment.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Is gravy a condiment? I never thought about that.
It's a fixin'. It's a dressing.
It's a fixin'.
It's a dressing.
I knew a guy who hated that word fixin' so much because he said it sounded low rent to him. It was just like when he was like, I go to get all my sandwich with all the fixins, and he's just like, for some reason he
hates. What does he say? Toppings. I'll have all the toppings. Please.
He probably said toppings. I can see what he's saying, but it doesn't bother me. It's fun to say fixins.
Why don't you give us all the toppings?
With everything on it.
I want everything on it.
He was from New York, so he probably said with everything on it.
Everything on it.
He wasn't from Philly, so he wasn't like from saying with or whiz with or. Oh yeah, you're trying to talk like a New Yorker.
No, I was not. I was doing horribly. I can't really do that.
With everything on it, eh? Hey.
I could do it like if I wasn't trying to do it.
I want a pizza with everything on it, eh? Don't skimp on the ice cream. I like my pizza with extra ice cream.
You still sound a little mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can here. He's my super pro dad. Or what was it? Master pro. He's my master pro dad. Okay, moving on. What were we talking about? We're talking about gravy as a soda. Oh yeah, onions. But what if the onion cake was like a meat pie? You'd eat meat pie.
I don't know.
You'd eat a meat pie, wouldn't you?
Yeah, there's things called meat pies.
So why wouldn't you eat an onion cake? I bet there is an onion cake.
I think you've got something there, sir.
I bet it already exists.
I think you have rhetorically mastered me.
Yeah. So we were talking about layers and creaminess inside, and because we were talking about Finibians, right?
Okay.
From Finibus 3.
I think that was actually in the episode.
What, cream filling?
No, Finibians or whatever.
The Finibians.
The colonists.
The colonists, right. So their air was going to become unbreathable, and so they needed to give them atmospheric processors.
And it was Starfleet Remembrance
Day. So the Remembrance Day was kind of like to provide the theme of the episode, right? Because it just so happened on Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day was a day to remember in its own right because of the Gorn.
But somebody was choosing not to remember stuff because she has horrible PTSD.
Yes, she was choosing not to remember stuff. And because it was because of this new Remembrance Day that got created by the attack of the Gorn, that it was a Remembrance Day for the Enterprise, at least. About this fucked up attack.
Yeah, that will be that'll be like their next Remembrance Day. They'll have to remember this one.
Yeah, but it's on the same day, so it's convenient. Yeah. But that Remembrance Day is what caused her to celebrate the original Remembrance Day because it allowed her to like let go of some baggage or something. I don't know. Not really let go, but feel a little better about it. But so there was that. That was to provide the whole thematic sort of the thematic theme of the episode.
And you said the name of the episode was Memento Mori?
Yeah.
Well, she kept seeing that image of her brother.
Right.
And that's what a Memento Mori is. It's like a ghostly image of a loved one or something like that.
I did not.
Something like that. Somebody can correct me on that. We can look it up real quick to double check. But it's an apparition. It's a type of apparition.
I like that word, apparition.
I know, right? It sounds like a fucking scholar.
Yeah, right. Makes me think of like fight.
It's a scholarly apparition.
Yeah. It makes me think I'm camping out among orcs and ettins and dwarves, and at night there's apparitions.
It's like a D&D term or something.
Yeah, right.
Like I was writing the Monstrous Compendium or something.
Speaking of ettins, I'd only heard of ettins from, that's a D&D thing, right?
Some kind of giant or something.
They're a two-headed large thing. They're not quite, it depends on what world a giant is, like how big a giant has to be. Giants can be,
they can be big.
They can be bigger than skyscrapers, or you could consider a giant like Goliath, who's probably just 6 feet tall.
Big dude.
He wasn't like 4 feet,
it was
5
like the
or
Bronze Age. 6 feet tall is a giant.
Yeah, so but they're big old, they're like ogres with two heads is my understanding. My remedial understanding of Ettins. Now there was this game Ultima 4 and Ultima 5 that I was really into in the 80s. Like super yeah, I played it on my Apple II Plus. Fucking great. Yeah, great game. And that of course all those RPGs sort of drew from D&D. They were kind of instantiations of a D&D quest basically, you know, and that's what the video games kind of felt like. So they had Ettins in that. And that was actually the first time I'd heard of Ettins was playing Ultima. And I hadn't seen or heard of Ettins since. But then recently I've been playing this game, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which is a spin-off of the Borderlands games that I sometimes talk about. It's like Borderlands in the fantasy world, and I think there's an Ettin near the beginning of that. When I was like, "Whoa, there's an Ettin."
I don't believe there's an Ettin in this entire Star Trek episode.
Oh yeah, speaking of Star Trek, thanks for writing the ship, Jesse. There are no Ettins.
I have taken over the helm.
Yeah, just feel free whenever you want. When things are wandering.
Mr. Jesse, you have the con.
Yes, you have the con. Hey, when people say belay that order, do you ever think of like it sounds like delay that order?
It's like that, yeah.
It's like that, but it doesn't mean the same thing because belay, the definition of belay is to fix a running rope around a cleat, rock, pin, or other object. That's different. That's nautical.
There's a belaying pin, which is on the side of it's a thing on the side of the boat you can tie something up on. And then if you hit somebody with it, they're going to be laying on the ground.
Oh, snap. That was pretty good. I like that. So, yeah, you're right. And apparently it's nautical slang for stop, enough. Belay that, mister. Man your post.
Yeah.
So, and that was actually...
Like sort of override that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because they say that in this episode, belay that order. And of course, there's, it's no secret that there's many parallels between, space adventuring and seafaring adventuring. It's funny.
It's the model, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how sci-fi, like space shows, sci-fi spaceship shows,
Sci-fi spaceship.
Star
Trek spaceship.
Sci-fi spaceship shows. Sci-fi spaceship shows. They have the whole theme of the boat nauticalism. Is it nauticism? Is it nautisserie?
It's nautical, I think.
It's just nautical.
Yeah.
But then often
nautical, marine, maritime.
Yeah.
All of these words are
all of those words, but
evocative of that.
There's the less publicly recognized, but often, equally relevant that's becoming more popular is the idea of this sort of Western kind of vibe, this frontierism, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's always been around too, but I think I've always gotten the Western thing didn't occur to me until later in life, but I immediately from the start was like, they're always talking about this like it's some boat in the water, but then later on I started realizing, no, it's kind of like a frontier Western
Sometimes
stuff too.
It's like that, yeah.
Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes
and
like that.
When Star Trek started, that was a very popular type of show at the time was the Western. There were several Westerns on TV, on TV in the 50s and the 60s, and some of those Westerns had people like William Shatner on them before they were in Star Trek.
Oh.
And Leonard Nimoy and
I didn't know that.
Forrest Kelly. Yeah, they were all in one of those more like anthology Western kind of shows. I don't remember what it's called, but it's one of the big ones.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were in that.
And then of course there's Firefly, which is sort of like a direct
that's
Western.
that's very Western.
Yeah. And that influenced
Mandalorian is very Western.
Right, I was just about to say that the Mandalorian kind of drew from that whole vibe. They kind of rode. Or actually, would you say the Mandalorian, because it's kind of this dude that just shows up into town, does some cool shit, and leaves.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking also to a certain that's in terms of theme, in terms of presentation of the Boba Fett book of Boba Fett. It was less about this sort of person showing up to town, doing some shit, some mysterious figure showing up and then leaving. That's not what it was about. But there was a lot of imagery in Book of Boba Fett of Western. It did take place in a desert, obviously.
It was like the imagery aspect. It was more like a crime kind of crime story or something. And
there was Timothy Oliphant's character was, all cowboy and
yeah, so yeah, he's definitely Western.
Yeah. Speaking of onion cake, there is an onion cake, and it's a savory sweet cake prepared using onion as a primary ingredient. Various onion cakes are consumed in Canada, China, Germany, Korea, Switzerland, Wales, and in other countries, according to Wikipedia.
In other countries where they eat horrible weird stuff.
Yeah, right. So it's a savory cake. So as long as it's savory, it's Manavery. What rhymes with savory?
Knavery.
Knavery. Knavery.
That's not
Neighborly.
a word. Is
As long as it's savorly, it's neighborly. How's that? I'm gonna live by those words. As long as it's savorly, it's neighborly.
I could see how that
neighborly.
might be something that you could make work.
Yeah. So this whole plot of the Finibus 3 about getting them their unbreathable atmospheric processor, it was just kind of an arbitrary mission. It didn't really. It's kind of like they just kind of made it up.
Yeah, right.
But didn't they end up? Didn't they end up at the end? One part of the solution was they ejected the air compressor. At least that's what I drew from it, because it was what was it?
It was gonna blow, right?
Yeah, and I'm trying to look up what it was called that they ejected at the end. It was the thing that I'm looking up on the internet. The internet tells me what I want to know. And then when it doesn't, I get really mad and I say, internet, why have you done me wrong? Okay, so it's called the AP350 is what they ejected at the end.
Oh, snap.
Because the whole solution to the thing was they were going to use the redshift.
They should have had the 357 model.
Is there a you don't even know? No, you're thinking of something else.
I'm not thinking of anything.
You're just saying.
I'm just saying stuff.
You're always just saying stuff. No, the AP350, and I looked up because that's what they ejected as part of their solution to the problem, which was they're going to use the redshift to make the Enterprise look like it was dead in the water, basically. Mm-hmm. And then I guess they dropped the AP350. I wasn't exactly sure.
That's where that explosion came from?
Yeah, I guess that's why they did it. They wanted to make the Enterprise look like it was blowing up or something.
Yeah.
And because the deal is with the black holes, is that I'd heard this before, actually.
They've talked about this, yes.
But outside, it's actually true. The theory goes, I guess that's still the theory, is that when you go into a black hole, your image appears like forever because of the way gravity and shit gets all fucked up.
Yeah.
And so the image just hangs out. And so the image hung out.
I think I learned that in like high school physics or something.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so I thought that was a pretty clever solution. I kind of dug that, actually, because it sort of makes the Enterprise. Now, you didn't get to see it too well. What you did see was an awesome black hole. I really dug that black hole special effect. I thought that was tight.
Yeah, that was cool. And the whole idea was like they were going to play dead, and it was the whole hunter and prey thing going down.
Yes.
How they were, the Gorn was like, you're just prey and we're going to come and get you.
Yeah, the Gorn to get yous.
Going to get yous. Going to feed you to our young.
Yeah, right. So, and so basically they did a thing where they made the Enterprise look like it was in one place when it wasn't there anymore, and then they drew some thing, I guess, to make it blow up to look like it, and meanwhile they were all slingshotting out. Yeah, about the Predator and Prey, the Gorn are like some fucking shark lizards or something. Lizard shark.
They're big lizard horrible dudes.
Would you say they're shark lizards or lizard sharks?
I don't know if they are kind of shark-like, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if a shark had legs and shit and was green and terrible.
Yeah, right. They said, because at one point, La'an says
slow and goofy.
Slow and goofy. Yeah. That's
but still monstrous.
Yeah, and still coming after you.
Oh my God. Yeah, they never stopped coming after like Kirk on that episode with the Gorn.
I know, that was so creepy. It just kept coming after him.
Have we talked about that episode?
I don't know. I can't
remember.
I don't think so. I think it's one of those classic episodes that's hard to talk about.
Just sounds like we've talked about it.
I think that was the first episode of Star Trek I remember ever seeing, was that episode. It's like Inner Light on TNG. It's like, how do you talk about that episode? Because it's just so iconic. But then again, so is the Tribbles, and I wasn't part of that discussion, but you and Patrick successfully talked about the Tribble episode. Tribbles is a little more lighthearted, so I don't know. It's funnier to laugh along with it. But yeah, Lon says that their eyes are both dead and hungry at the same time, and that's what made me think of sharks, because I was like, yeah, and then I thought about their eyes and how they kind of
sharks.
how you can't really communicate with them too well, so they're like sharks. And lizards are the same. Like, how do you communicate with a fucking lizard, right? You can communicate with a cat in a way. There's ways,
That's why lizards aren't really pets.
Yeah, fucking snakes. Some people will insist that they are, but I don't get it.
Movable plants or something.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So,
a mammal is a pet.
Mammal. Can we? What if it was you think anyone keeps kangaroos as pets?
No.
Those are marsupials.
Yeah, it's still a mammal.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's a marsupial.
No, I don't think you want those as pets.
They seem like they're just giant rodents, basically. That'll fuck you up.
Yeah, they're you don't want to mess with those guys.
I remember playing some game on Atari. It was called like Kangaroo or something. I don't know, but you were this kangaroo, and it kind of felt like playing Donkey Kong in a way. You went up these levels, and
they're all bouncy.
Yeah, they're bounce, and then the game was bouncy. And I remember part of the imagery in the game was standing on your tail and kicking people, and that was my first introduction to that concept. I was like, that's fucking weird, man. And then when I learned they actually do that, I was like, no fucking way. Kangaroos, I saw on like some nature show years later. Yeah, they just sit on their tail and double kick you, drop kick you, except they don't drop because they're on their fucking tails. That's how they have advantages over pro wrestlers.
It's a large tail, yeah.
Pro wrestlers, if you want to double drop kick someone, you fucking kick them and drop and fall your ass on the ground. Kangaroos can do the same thing, but they put their weight on their tail so they don't fall on the ground. They are superior to people in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, they aren't.
Yeah, watch out for those guys. If you're ever in the Outback, is that where they live? The Outback,
somewhere in Australia. What part of Australia? The Outback is Australia. Is that just?
I'm not really sure. I don't. Somebody help us out on that one. If you're in Australia,
yeah,
tell us about
the Outback.
We're dumb
because we're dumb and we don't know. So yeah, right. So kangaroos on tails. I wonder who would win, a kangaroo or a dolphin. Probably a kangaroo.
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with a dolphin either. Those
fuck you up. Right. Yeah, they are. Do you remember the name of the starship, the colony starship that La'an's?
The SS Puget Sound.
That's right. Now
that's in Washington State, Puget Sound.
Well, there you go. So she's from Washington State, or
no? The ship is
named after it.
They name ships after like rivers and bodies of water and famous people.
Right. What if they named a ship?
Other old ships.
What if they named a ship the USS River after River Phoenix? What then?
They'd probably call it the USS River Phoenix.
But it would be more clever if they just called it the USS River. You know, because it would be like it would be referring to River Phoenix and a river.
What about Rivers Cuomo?
Nobody would name anything after him.
Oh damn.
And you think he's going to get a building named after him? I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Not even a building.
No, he's fine, I'm sure. I'm sure he's a good guy.
Maybe a street. And maybe he'll get a street named after him. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the Gorn, the USS Puget Sound, where she's from, and that's where her where her ship was from. Her shit got fucked up. You were talking about her brother. There was the apparition of her brother. He was given a weird kind of creepy smile thing. Yeah, he's the one that discovered how they communicate, which is some kind of weird Morse code, their own version of Morse code, which seems a little bit antiquated for these creatures that look like these primitive lizard sharks. That they have these crazy ships. Looking at that ship, all I could think about is how dizzy I would get inside one of those things. But I'm sure space works out, so you don't feel it because they got the inertial
noises. They're not like right, like they don't speak like normal.
They
words
they make sort of these clicking noises, like that girl Fig who was running through the hall.
Right, yeah, she was doing that click, and then like Lon was like, "Oh shit." Yeah.
At first I thought that clicking was referring to. I wasn't sure where they were going with that. I didn't put it together, and in retrospect, I should have. It's so silly, but I was like, "Are they doing some kind?" I was afraid they were doing some kind of A Quiet Place. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was a good movie and everything. I'm just saying, like, I was like, are they grabbing an idea from somewhere else and saying, like, oh, they communicate? It's some creatures that...
It sort of had the same kind of vibe to it.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that, like, I was afraid they were going to invent some new species that was like, they echolocate, and that's their whole deal, and they click, and I was like, oh, they're just making some kind of trite shit. But I was like, oh no, it's about the Gorn. Of course it's about the Gorn. Why didn't I know that? Why didn't I see that coming? I'm stupid. And that was great. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
They had wild spaceships that were like all funny shaped.
Yeah. I was
very, very alien. It was a whole alien vibe, and you still didn't see them. You know,
yeah, you didn't see him at all in the episode, which I
see him at all,
which I liked. I liked that,
even in like the memories, the mind meld memories.
I like that they're sort of drip feeding us this Gorn stuff because they'll eventually show some Gorn.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, what I was saying is, being in that ship, if it weren't for, I guess it was, I would feel like I would get dizzy and sick and throw up because that shit was spinning around like crazy. But they have the inertial dampers. In that
Inertial dampeners.
Well, here's the deal. So this guy, Zuniga, one of the guys, Zuniga, he's talking about, Is that
one of the bridge guys?
Yeah, he's one of the bridge guys.
Is that the guy who's all like, at the end, he's all like, all right. I'm like,
yeah.
Snaps his fingers. Or something.
Yeah, right.
He's like, yeah. Like he just won like the dodgeball game or something.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he did. I thought I like Pike's reaction the most actually there because he really gave that feeling of relief. Just this whole it was like like Pike's reactions were really good throughout all this episode. But that in a second. Oh, so Zuniga said he sounded like he said inertial dampeners at max at one point, and he goes brace for heavy gravity, inertial dampeners at max. It sounded like he said dampeners, but the closed captioning says dampers. So now there's a controversy in place of dampeners versus dampers.
Yeah.
Because I heard dampeners, but the closed captioning said dampers. And at this point in Star Trek, I feel like they've accepted dampeners as the new way of saying it. You know, most people know them as inertial dampeners because dampers was an old school thing. And in the newer Star Trek stuff, I feel like they've always said dampeners. And so that's why it's weird that they would go, he would sound like he would say dampeners, but then the closed captioning would say dampers. The script I'm reading online, it was a transcript of the show.
Oh, you got a transcript?
Yeah, it also says dampers, but I'm getting the feeling that this transcript is probably just
that's just how some people pronounce dampers. They just say dampeners.
I don't know.
Maybe it's a dialectical thing.
So I don't know if this
dialect.
I'm beginning to think this made me wonder if this transcript is like taking, if someone's actually listening and typing it down, which I doubt. What I think more likely than not, they're just taking the file that has the closed captioning and putting it onto a screen, I'm thinking. But yeah, well, we can look up the definition of dampers.
But if the transcript says it and the closed captioning says it, I mean, I think.
But I think the transcript might be it might just be the closed captioning put on paper. Is what I'm thinking. Because in order to provide closed captioning, they often have a file that like is closed captioning, where all the closed captioning is when digital stuff, and so it's just a text file basically. Anyways, so I don't know. But I tend to think I like the idea that it's dampers. But according to this, it's a noun. It's a person or thing that has a depressing, subduing, or inhibiting effect.
A damper?
Yeah, that's a damper. And that's what the inertial dampers do.
Don't be a damper.
Yeah, right.
People used to say that.
Did people say that? Was that like some old school shit?
People said that, yeah. Don't be a damper.
Don't be a damper.
That's a real damper on our...
Dampers, pampers.
Hootenanny.
Hootenanny. Well, here's the strange thing. Dampener means a thing that has a restraining or subduing effect. Subduing is
like that was almost what you said before.
Yeah, and in fact, they both use the word subduing. So I think it is completely interchangeable.
It sounds like a tomato situation.
Yeah. Now, damper versus dampener. Let's see what Google has to say. Damper's corresponding verb is dampen. Yeah, to dampen, which means to deaden, restrain, or depress. This is from Grammarist.com. A dampener is someone or something that dampens.
What about the pedal on the piano? It's called a dampener pedal, isn't it?
I don't know.
The one that makes it quiet.
You would know that better than me, I think.
You think so?
I don't know. I don't remember what...
You're much more of a pianist than I am.
I guess I did play piano for a while. I guess they're dampener pedals. They wouldn't be... They're definitely not damper pedals.
Maybe it's damper pedal.
Maybe it is.
Jeez,
there is a damper pedals. It's Google insists that when I type in dampener pedals, Google's insisting that I'm looking for damper pedals. So I don't know. But according to this, a dampener is someone or something that dampens. So
Someone or something.
So here's it is. Here's it is. Here's it is.
Lurking in the darkness. Dampen.
Here's it is. Damper's corresponding verb is dampen. Okay? Dampener's verb is dampened. A dampener is something or someone that dampens. So a damper dampens. A dampener also dampens. They both dampens. I think there's a slight difference, but I'm having trouble. But so damper and dampening can. I think there's just some kind of slight sort of. It's like two formulas that reach the same answer or something. Anyways, it's not worth. It's not worth lingering on. Anyway, so
you know what we should do? We should take a break and then listen.
Oh.
Maybe we should listen to what Patrick has. He's pre-recorded some things, his comments on the episode. Maybe we can listen to some of those.
Yeah, but I think that's a really good idea. Oh yeah, I just wanted to make the one last point that it's interesting that Gorns, the Gorn have these.
The Gorn.
They're kind of these primitive looking shark lizards, but they've got these fancy, high tech, crazy, awesome ships that are zip zapping around.
Really zip zappity.
Yeah, they're really. But then they communicate. But they communicate the way they communicate
with some flashy code.
With some Morse code, flashy code.
Morse.
So in one sense they're well, I don't want to say primitive. I want to say
flashy Morse.
Little simplistic. They have a simplistic way of communication. They have sort of this primitive sort of, shark prehistoric shark vibe, shark lizard vibe. But then they have these fancy ships out of nowhere. So it's weird. It's a weird dissonance there. I don't dislike it. I think it's kind of neat actually. I like the idea of these two with disparate ideas coming together and to create this weird thing.
I think the deal is that like they're not very agile, because like when you see the Gorn, they move all slowly, but they're intelligent, obviously, and they're good at engineering. That was what I always read about the conception of the concept of the Gorn.
Oh, I didn't realize that they were good at engineering.
So obviously they can build awesome ships that are all fast and zippy zappy.
I didn't realize that was pre-established.
And you don't want to, a Gorn like infantry, you don't. That's a different thing. A Gorn spaceship. That's
wild.
That's gonna fuck you up.
They make some wild ships and do some wild shit.
Yeah, and they're weird shapes. They made it just look very alien and weird.
But right, they lumber about, but they've got that Jason Voorhees / zombie sort of effect of just sort of they're relentless.
They're still coming. They're coming at you.
And right, and so that's true both with infantry and like the on hand-to-hand combat, like with the original TOS one and their way of hunting ships is they're relentless, like La'an was saying. Because remember with Kirk and TOS, it was lumbering and it was relentless. It just kept coming at you. And the same was true in this episode, which is so they're holding up that. I think they're being pretty consistent with it. I really thought this episode was I thought it was really exciting. It was really cool.
I think so.
It was really cool.
I agree with you.
I really liked it.
Really.
Yeah.
It's really got Star Trek.
Yeah, it really does.
Got it.
I felt like it was exciting and engrossing, and it had me on the edge of my seat. So, do you agree or disagree?
I agree. There's lots of exciting shit. There was, those people, they were trapped in the cargo bay, and they were trying to fix stuff, and got a broken hand, and
he was
broken hand.
He has a broken hand, and that's got to be scary for Hemmer because he's the blind being not having sight,
He could care less.
Yeah, but he was really worried when he hurt his hand. He was like, "Fuck,
less.
I can't." Yeah, couldn't care less.
Sorry,
whatever.
fucked it up.
You motherfucker. Well, everyone knows what you mean. Anyone who wants to nitpick it can go eat my lard. I don't know.
Oh.
Just kidding. You do what you want. Just be nice to people. Don't be negative. But he was really freaked out when he was losing his hand. That's it's scary to lose your senses and abilities like that, man. I actually lost part of my hearing in my left ear at one point, and that's freaky, man. Yeah, it's freaky trying to adjust to that. Anyway, on that bummer, I guess it is time to take a break. Boop. Okay, we're back.
We're back. It's got Star Trek with Dan and Jesse.
Okay, so
we're gonna play some of Patrick's comments, and he's gonna help drive our show along.
Drive our show to the best of our abilities. Let's do it now.
Because we need a little help.
Test.
Thanks, Patrick.
Test. All right. Hello,
He's
Dan
in the
and Jesse
desert.
and the It's Not Star Trek podcast.
Hi, Patrick.
Audience, this is Patrick reporting from sunny Arizona, where it is quite hot, you might say. And yes, Dan, it is a dry heat.
I didn't say that.
That was somebody else said that.
All right, so
I wouldn't say
quick
that.
initial thoughts about
I might.
Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
He gave away his
newest
position.
episode, Memento Mori.
He got
What
doxxed.
a corker of an episode.
Did he just say?
Corker of an episode.
Wait,
This
I
is
gotta
your-
rewind that.
What a corker of an episode.
Wait, that was-
He keeps saying it.
I'm gonna rewind because I'm rewinding it.
What a corker
Is
of an
that
episode.
you're rewinding it, or you
What a
just keep
corker
saying
of an
it?
episode. This isn't your. What a corker of an episode. What a corker of an episode. This isn't your. What a corker of an episode. What a corker of an episode. This isn't your old bog standard
No.
Star Trek episode. This was quite the corker. Pulling in influences from Balance of Terror, from TOS, Starship
like
Down,
Balance of
from
Terror.
Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Wrath of Khan, of course. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and that's about all I have to say for now, but stay tuned. I should have some more comments soon. Man, it's hot.
Well, yeah, maybe.
You know,
so he's out in he said he was in Arizona. That sort of gives it away, but we don't have to tell you what he was doing in
yeah,
Arizona.
maybe in his next clip he tells us exactly what he's doing in Arizona. In retrospect, we probably should have led with this because we kind of already went over that part, but about it being a good episode. So thanks for adding nothing, Patrick. We already said that, Patrick.
But listen,
we already said that, Patrick.
This stuff.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
The references to other TV show, other episodes of Star Trek. Balance of Terror is the one with the Romulans, right? I believe that is the one with the Romulans, with Mark Leonard, who ends up playing Sarek later on, but he's playing the top Romulan guy.
It's
Is that Balance of Terror?
it was written by Paul Schneider, but probably a different Paul Schneider than the one that acted in Parks and Rec. Wasn't that guy named Paul Schneider?
I don't know. It's Paul Schaefer.
That's a different guy.
Yeah, it was.
It's investigating a loss of communications with a line of Earth outpost near the Romulan neutral zone formed under the terms of the peace treaty that ended the Earth-Romulan War.
There was a Earth-Romulan war, but it was before they had view screens, and they never got to see the Romulans. And so they all of a sudden they see the Romulans, and they're like, they look just like the Vulcans. What's up with that? But I guess what he's saying is, it's like it's this enemy that you're not seeing. You don't know what they look like. Is that what he's getting at? Have you seen that episode? Maybe I'm wasting time.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I don't really remember.
Yeah, it's actually been a long time since I've seen it.
It says it guest stars Mark Leonard, who portrayed Romulan commander.
And he was Sarek.
And he was Sarek, right? So
He's the classical Sarek.
So I guess he's the classical Sarek. So I guess it's a cat and mouse game. Yeah, that's what it says. It's a cat and mouse.
It's like a cat and mouse.
It says a cat and mouse game ensues.
Like and Wrath of Khan is also like that. It's like a cat and mouse game. It's like a submarine movie where you're like hiding out in the depths, and you're like running blind, and so is the other guy, and like, it's like that. It's like a submarine action movie.
Is there an equivalent in a spaceship movie? A movie where how the submarine goes too deep and then the pressure starts cracking it? That happens in like every submarine movie.
It happens in every submarine movie. It seems to only have happened in this sci-fi show.
Yeah, I guess the equivalent was that they were descending into
the pressure,
the pressure from the brown dwarf and then the black hole.
And the Gorn, for all their agile zippy zappiness, they couldn't withstand the pressure from that funny brown dwarf gas giant.
Yeah,
is that what a brown dwarf is? Okay, I wasn't clear on what a brown dwarf was.
Yeah, a brown dwarf is a gas giant. But
I took astronomy. You didn't. I know what a brown.
No, I was just confirming that because I couldn't quite remember. No, I took astronomy 101. It means I'm a fucking genius, right? But the difference though is when in this situation when they went under pressure, that played out really quickly. Usually in the submarine movies, when they go too deep and you're worried about the pressure, it's like this long, suspenseful scene.
Yeah,
right?
You're right. There is much more suspense about
So,
it. And like the ship starts creaking and cracking. But there was a little bit of creaking and cracking because I think it was Uhura was
Yeah.
like I've never heard a starship do
Right.
that before.
And Hemmer was like, concentrate.
Yeah.
Focus.
It's like, don't worry about that.
Yeah, don't worry. Just don't worry about it. But I'm glad they didn't have to linger too long on that because we've done enough of that whole is it going to blow up pressure thing. Oh, speaking of imploding, when that Romulan or Gorn ship rather implodes, it starts jerking all around. Looks like a tin can, all like jerking, going. It looked all weird. I don't know.
That was cool.
It was cool. It made me wonder. It's like, would that look like that? Because it moved so quickly. It was like, junk, 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 junk. Yeah.
I would kind of think if it's pressure, it's a high pressure thing. It's buckling. That's what happens.
It buckles and so it jerks around.
Yeah.
It's a real jerk.
Everybody on board was like, oh no, clickety click.
Clickety clack. Oh, speaking of click clacks, I meant to ask you, how Fig was running through the halls. Like, do you remember going to the swimming pool? Did you ever go to the swimming pool?
Yes.
Did they ever tell you?
We called it the swimming hole.
That's when it's dirt.
No, I'm just playing.
The singing sinkhole. The swimming sinkhole. The singing swim hole. The singing sinkhole.
What?
Do you know remember how at the pool they tell you not to run at the pool? They're always like, stop running. No running.
Yeah.
That's
they do
like
that.
That's like what Fig was doing on the transport bridge.
They do that on when you go to the public pool, and even at the pool. My grandparents had a pool, so like I always had my own pool that I could go to. But
sweet! So you didn't have to worry about those lifeguards.
There was no lifeguards, but they still would be like, watch out, don't fall and bust your head open.
Yeah. So right, Fig was running through the bridge. That was another thing it brought me to. Another thing I thought that was going to happen this episode that I'm kind of glad it didn't was when there was that Professor Thandy at the beginning, right? Who was like. From the planet, she was the Finibian.
Oh yeah.
And so I was wondering, it's like, is this episode going to be about like how they're trying to get them off the ship,
right?
And they can't do it, and we slowly watch all these people die something.
It looked like your classic Star Trek sort of evacuation episode.
Yeah, and I thought
it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't at all. That was such a brief part. It was almost like they introduced this.
Those dudes were just holograms. Those guys were fake, right? All those people.
Holograms.
Wasn't that the deal? It was like a decoy.
What the people?
All those people, yeah, weren't they just decoys?
I didn't get that part.
I thought they said something about how they were holographic colonists. I thought that was what Lon said. They were bait.
The colonists is bait. They waited. Oh, okay. So the colonists were holograms. I just totally missed that. Because I know they detected there was something where they were saying sensors are detecting a slight optical distortion near the second moon. A hologram, sir. So that was... I don't know what that hologram was supposed to be, but then there was another line about the hologram. The colonists is bait. They waited for us to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah, that's why that led me to believe that was all. All those people were holograms. When they were scanning the ship, they were like, "We're not getting any readings that we can understand."
Oh.
But they threw that all aside once they saw that they were humans in trouble, and they were like, "Oh shit," or whatever.
Right.
People in trouble, beings in trouble that needed help.
Then why would that Fig character start talking about the Gorn?
Right. Well, that was the thing. Did the Gorn make copies of the colonists to make them more believable, and then so the copies of the colonists had some memories of horrible Gorn trauma? Holograms seem to often be copies of people that existed at one point or another.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get that part. Great. We're gonna have to
set us fucking straight, dude.
Yeah, I feel embarrassed that I don't know
Internet
that.
people.
All I got was there's the presence of a hologram, and I don't know. Anyways, they raised that shield. They couldn't raise the shield because there was that bridge in place. And so basically that was all set up to get the basic. It doesn't really matter. It was all set up just to get the Gorn into the situation.
Yeah, it was all part of the Gorn's plan to catch them.
Yeah.
Unawares.
So with that, I guess we should play the second clip.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right.
This guy's keeping us in line.
Hey, it's Patrick again. How about this? Let's talk about Hemmer and Uhura. Hemmer and Uhura, who are pulling a Geordie and Beverly, stuck in a cargo bay. You got to open the door to the space to solve the problem. Of course, Hemmer had the good sense to suggest putting on EV suits, which I suppose was not an option a few hundred years in the future in the next generation. But really, I thought that whole
they got a lot more
subplot
EV
was
suits.
Good. Excellent scene. Hemmer having to walk Uhura through the paces, and Uhura helping. Basically, they were helping each other. It's classic Star Trek, helping each other and learning about each other in the process. And we, as the audience, get to learn about them too. So I thought that was Jesus, it's fucking hot out here.
But it's a dry heat, Patrick.
Dry heat sucks, dude.
Yeah.
That's everybody says, oh, it's a dry heat. But you know what? Like after a few days of that stuff, you start to notice like where is the moisture? Like your skin starts like, what's going on here? My throat's dry, my skin's dry.
Yeah.
I'm in the West.
I mean, I remember being 105 degrees in Oklahoma, and the first day I was like, this is not so bad. But after a week, it starts to wear you the fuck down.
It's still 105 fucking degrees.
It wears you
dude.
down. No, it wears you down. It wears you
Yeah.
down. But then again, when you step back into this area and it's humid, it is kind of like getting punched in the face.
It's thick.
So.
Yeah. If you leave and come back, it punches you right in the face.
Right.
If you go to like other parts of North America or Europe and you come back, and it's like, oh my God.
So he spoke of Uhura and Hemmer. Uhura, she kind of had these 3 lines that stuck out to me. It's like they were trying to make some kind of connection to kids, but it's mixed throughout the different ages of kids, and I'll explain what I mean. The first time she goes, first of all, when Hemmer is all like saying, cadets never read the material beforehand, because he asks her what the thing is, and she's like, it's an air purifier or whatever. I don't know if you remember that. He was talking about.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So, and then she goes, so Uhura admitted in a previous episode, she's like, sometimes I overshare, sometimes I talk too much. I have a hard time oversharing with figuring out what I should and shouldn't say. And he asked her the question, and she gave the proper response, I thought, which was quick and to the point. It's like, this is what it is. This is what it does.
Yeah.
It's like, and because
she actually did read it.
Yeah, she did read it, but she didn't give a long-winded, oversharing answer. She gave a short, concise, proper answer. And in Hemmer, instead of saying, elaborate, please, he was just like, they never read their shit. He was being all grumpy about it.
Yeah.
But the fact is, but then she was like, okay, you want me to overshare? I'll tell you every little fucking thing about it. So she was actually, it's almost like she recognized, and I don't think the writers really intended this, but it felt like she recognized that she overshares, and so she just, she worked on that by giving a short, concise answer. But she's shit on for oversharing, and now she's being shit on for being concise. So,
okay, so that dude's like, he's like a certain type of Andorian, but he's still an Andorian.
Enar.
And they're just kind of cranky and,
yeah,
grouchy all the time.
Yeah, they are some grouchy grouchers. I'm wondering, I remember, so when they dumped the AP 300 at the end, they were talking about, at the beginning of the episode, how they needed to give them an upgrade. The atmospheric processor.
Beating it.
The atmospheric processor was the upgrade that they were going to give to the planet, right? Right?
Something like that, yeah. Those guys needed some help.
So, and it was the AP3. Now, I was looking up because the AP350 is what they dumped at the end. And according to Memory Alpha, the AP350 is a model of atmospheric processor. So that means that...
Have we seen this before? Have they talked about it before?
So I was wondering, because originally I was like, they were talking about how the plot is that they're fixing the premise is that they need to go to this planet and give them an upgrade to their atmospheric processor so they can breathe, because they're going to run out of air. And I was saying, well, that's kind of like an arbitrary plot to have. What point why even bother saying that much unless you're just trying to get things started? But it turns out, I guess they mentioned the atmospheric processor because that's exactly what they dumped at the end of the episode. Was the AP350, which was an atmospheric processor. So I guess that's why they introduced it at the beginning of the episode. I don't know. But yeah, Hemmer is a grump. I like the when like he's like instructing Uhura to fix the shit, and she touches one of those rods.
Yeah.
He all tells her to like check if it's hot or whatever, or check it out, and she touches it, and she's like, hot. And he's all like, I did not say touch them.
Yeah. I know.
And I think I kind of lolled at that. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
but yeah, so but we're talking about the Uhura's lines. She said, she goes at one point, like when Hemmer was being all grumpy at her, she goes, and he's like, "You haven't impressed me yet," or whatever. She goes, "Challenge accepted." Which is like, I feel a new thing in the past 10 years, if you consider that new to us old folks that might seem new.
Yeah.
Do the kids still say challenge accepted? Is that something kids say?
I don't know if kids said that when I was a kid.
They never said it when, that's my point, is they never said it when I was a kid.
They never accepted any challenges.
No, yeah, no, exactly.
That's why the world's so shitty now.
Right. So, the first time I think I saw the challenge accepted meme started getting popular was, I mean, I'd heard people, I guess I'd heard
So
it.
our kids nowadays are just like, yeah, we accept the challenges.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, man.
Yeah, it is good. It is good.
There will be many challenges.
It's true. It's a good message.
There's a lot of messes to clean up.
It's a good message to send across. But I didn't start noticing it becoming popular as a meme until, I guess, Reddit in the past 10 years, because that was a big thing. Because, I mean, I'd heard the term before, but it became really popular to say challenge accepted in the past 10 years. So that seemed like... But then another time, when she was, like, taking the rod out, she goes, "And the crowd goes wild," which was like... That was old school, but that was from when we were kids. That was like a 90s thing.
Yeah, oh yeah, that was more, yeah.
Yeah, challenge was more like the 2010s. The 2010s.
Yeah.
And the crowd goes wild. That was like a 90s thing.
It is funny the things they try to reference as sort of like Earth pop culture in
Right.
Star Trek, and it's just from all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
Just like 70 years of stuff.
Yeah. I guess if you got to distill it all, 100 years of slang into a certain time period. But then the third one, she says, "And Uhura for the win," which was sort of a follow-up to "And the crowd goes wild." That was just kind of like something else that we would also say in the
crowd goes wild.
In the crowd.
That's on an Outkast album.
Is it?
An Outkast song. But if you think about it, I guess, maybe in the future, like different stuff, and I think maybe we've talked about how like if in earlier podcasts when they've I think there's some episodes of Discovery where they were playing music that was more like contemporary to us, but they were playing it as oldies. I guess what I'm trying to say is in the future they're going to pick and choose like things from the past, like things from the past are going to come back as fads. So like, they might start saying weird stuff from the 40s.
Yeah.
At some point, we say like weird hipster stuff, from the 60s sometimes. Like I say, because I'm a character, I say like groovy and stuff. Like I pick and choose my my lexicon.
Well, the in the past 10 years, dope started making a comeback.
Right,
People
there's
going,
dope.
That's dope. That made a comeback. Now, cool has been around since the dawn of time.
Right.
I mean, that's just been around
Cool
forever.
was the first word that white people stole from black people.
Ah, see, that's why it stuck around, because it marks the first. I liked how, speaking of, Hemmer and Uhura, I like how Hemmer goes, he's not fond of teams because he has to work with Uhura.
I'm not fond of teams.
Yeah. No, and I can relate. Because a lot of times it's just easier and better to do things yourself because you know the system and
Right.
and you know how you think it should be done, and it's quicker just so you don't have to fuck around. It feels much more
he's
nimble.
one of those guys, that's what his personality is like.
Right.
He's like, listen, I'm a genius.
Right.
Let me do my thing.
Yeah. The thing is in a perfect world, those conditions would hold up though, right? And this is kind of what happened is it's not a perfect world. Sometimes those conditions hold up. Sometimes you can't do it yourself either because there's too many variables. It's just overwhelming. That wasn't the case here. But sometimes you need teams just because there's too much shit to keep track of. But here the issue was is sometimes you need teams because
You never need Microsoft Teams.
No.
Never.
No.
Never need it.
You never.
You need real teams.
Everyone always wants to integrate Microsoft Teams into their business model, and it's always late and it's always a bad idea.
We don't need to do that.
Yeah. But in this situation, it wasn't that there were too many variables. In this situation, it was the other kind of non-optimal condition, which was his shit got fucked up. You never want to place too much responsibility on one person because if that person is either unable or unwilling to do their job, and he was unable to do his job at that point, like you need other people as backup, you need redundancy in your system. So,
Yep.
But that was cool that he, worked with her and that all worked out.
Spaceships are totally redundant, man.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of redundancies on the spaceship.
Like a Klingon penis.
Like a Klingon penis.
Or maybe more like Klingon testicles.
Allegedly.
Klingon testicles are
Like
more,
Klingon testicles.
it's doubly
Okay.
redundant. But Klingons only have 2 breasts.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Why does that happen?
Well, breasts are already redundant because you only need one. Anyway.
Well, it's like testicles. Maybe they just mean
like testicles.
Maybe they mean inner organs only, like, you know, your gut and your chest and your boobobs.
I don't know. Boobobs. What else would Patrick say?
So what did Patrick say? Moving on to the next.
Boobobs.
Boobobs and Schlimschlams. And Clownors. Klarnor, that's another alien name. Okay. Klondar, the Klarnor.
Hello again.
The Burninator.
Patrick. Currently surrounded by rattlesnakes and scorpions.
Yeah, it is.
Discovered
Oh boy. Fuck.
that they seem to be mollified by insightful comments about Star Trek. So I'm just going to keep talking for a bit. It seems to keep them at bay.
That's positive. They don't like
talking
lavender.
A little bit about our old friend Captain Pike. You know, it's an interesting thing with Pike because he's got this plot armor in the sense that, at least in theory, we know he survives. We know he survives till the incident that puts him into the beeping chair. More importantly, he knows that. And you have to wonder, as a decision maker, the captain is the primary decision maker on the ship, how does that affect his decision making? On the one hand, he can take, watch it there, Mr. Rattlesnake. He can take more risks, in a sense, because he knows, or at least strongly believes, that he's not going to die at that moment. However, he cares about his crew. Any one of his crew could die. And even though we know some of them will survive, like Spock and Uhura, Nurse Chapel, Mbenga and others, he doesn't know that. And so any risky maneuver he decides to take could, in fact, result in everyone dying except for him, as far as he knows, right? So I think that's going to be very interesting to see how they play with that. And I think they were doing that in this episode because he was taking some risks, I think, a little bit undergirded by that notion that he knows that he's going to make it out, the ship is going to make it out. I think that's where his belief in the Enterprise, at least in part, comes from. But people died. They lost 7 crew in this episode, and that weighs heavily on him. And that was 7 crew. They also lost, I believe, if I recall correctly, a number of the refugees that they were picking up from the cargo ship.
See, they weren't holograms.
There's some beeping in the background.
So I find, I think that's something that we want to keep paying attention to as the series goes on, to see how that knowledge of Pike's future plays into his decision making, both positively and negatively. All right.
That's a very interesting thing to bring up.
Rattlesnakes.
There's no rattlesnakes there.
He's just talking.
Well, and there's.
Oh, do you think there's tarantulas?
Yeah, they might. There's going to be some spiders there too.
Oh, there's no doubt.
If you've got snakes, you've got spiders.
Yeah, speeders.
But okay, so that's a very interesting point to bring up about Pike and his future. There was the part where he's talking to Khan Jr. What's her name? Leon. I keep calling her Khan Jr. I know.
Leon, yeah.
And he's saying how you need to have some hope, and you need to show that the other crew people that there's hope that we might make it out, that it's not all about Leon has all her hope, the hope for the episode is they figure out how to communicate with the Gorn flashes, and that hope is buried in her memories that she's buried because she has PTSD about the Gorn.
Speaking of Pike and Lon, yeah, so it was interesting that interaction with Lon when it was all hot. Spock was all like super sweaty. He was the sweatiest one of the bunch, I noticed, because it was getting hot in that room, and Pike was a little sweaty, and then there was Ortega, who wasn't that sweaty, and then La'an wasn't that sweaty. But La'an was starting to freak out about the Gorn, right? She was like, they're going to hunt you, and they're going to kill you, and we're all going to die, and it's going to suck, so we better be smart about this. And then Ortega was just like, oh, well, Okay. You could tell that she was fucked up about it because you could tell Pike wasn't really encouraged by her attitude. She was speaking truth and honesty, but at the same time, Pike was like, he's good. He's a good captain because some captains might get all pissed off at her because she was being emotional and like getting all like,
yeah, he understands.
He understood.
Yeah.
He understood her feelings, but he also knew that to successfully motivate her to, handle the situation, there's no use yelling at her. The more important thing is to ask her if she's feeling okay.
Right.
And to just let her know that.
Because she was like yelling at him and she was about to just lose it. And he was like, listen, are you okay?
Yeah. Well, that was another scene, right? Because she was like, it's the Gorn, sir. And everyone looks at him and he looks at his sweater for a second, like, and then she realized at that moment, like, Pike was like, I understand, but I'm the captain. Don't push this.
Yeah, right.
And she caught herself. She was like, oh, shit. That moment where they're like, okay, everyone's pausing. It's like, whoa, it's like, you can't be talking like that. But it's a very serious situation for her, obviously for everyone. So it's understandable. But then, and so then later on, he's asking her if it's okay. And then he's trying to he's kind of trying to let her know that her attitude about it, like she has good knowledge, but her attitude about it isn't helping. But he was also trying to be understanding. He knew that the helpful thing to say it's not helpful to tell her that her attitude's not helping.
Right.
It's better to spin it positively, to be like, try to, be hopeful, try to, not in some sort of like, let's pretend everything's nice kind of way. He's like, the realities are there, but let's be hopeful. Let's try to provide some hope.
Because, it was the difference between a victory and a defeat,
Yeah. So I thought that was I liked the way that they had him handle La'an, because it was understanding, but not only just understanding, he was also communicating in an effective manner to her that got her to get the best out of her, which is what, any captain or manager or whatever, I guess, should be doing.
Right, yeah.
So,
exactly.
So yeah, the Pike was funny. He was, what was it? It was, Ortega was, it was kind of funny how at the beginning, So, like, they were talking about going into the brown dwarf, and they were saying it was like 200 million kilometers away. I guess impulse drive do they go in there on impulse? I don't know.
Yeah, if you go full impulse.
You must go fast as fuck.
It's still pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, things are fast in space.
It's not like, speed of light, but it's still pretty fucking fast.
Well, yeah, it doesn't take much to propel yourself in space, and the more you propel yourself, the faster you just keep going and shit. So, like, you kind of slip slide through space. But, and they're talking about how it's going around a black hole, and Ortega's like how big of a black hole? And he's like, one problem at a time. So you can tell at that whole scene, Pike he kind of quietly is getting exasperated at Ortega, because then right after that, Pike is like, Helm, full impulse to Spock's mark. And Ortega's like, aye, full impulse into a giant gas cloud of death. Why not? And then he gives this look at her, just like, come on, dude, that's not helping. He's just like, what the god damn it, So I kind of I think there's some good personalities. Going on here.
Yeah, that Ortega's is definitely pretty funny.
Yeah, she got to shine in this episode in certain ways, and I like that. I like when she was like, space really wants us dead. It was just kind of this weird, humorous, defeated kind of.
One,
yeah. So
that's because she's she's the one that's driving the ship.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, listen, I have to deal with all this shit. You guys are telling me this, that, and the other, and all this stuff's happening.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to drive this fucking ship.
Pike, Pike says, he goes, set a course to pursue the enemy vessel, quick but quiet, Erica.
Yeah.
And she goes, that's my specialty. And that's funny because, she's a good pilot, like you're saying, and that she has to deal with all this shit. But she's generally not a quiet person.
She's not quiet, right. She'll say stuff.
She'll say stuff like, she's like, what, are we going to throw our luggage at him? Just being a real smart ass about it,
Right, and everybody all had this look on their face when she said that.
Yeah. Funny. Right. Did you notice when they dropped that photon torpedo on that Gorn ship?
Photon torpedo.
The photon torpedo! To me, it looked like an old Razor flip phone or something.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Like dropping like a neon black light ray.
It was lit up all funny.
Like it was at a rave.
Like it looked like that old school kind of torpedo that they had in TOS, but it was lit all strangely. It had this glowy lines on it.
Right. It was all the glowy lines.
It looked funny.
It looked funny indeed.
Like a funny flip phone.
Yeah, so what were we talking about? Patrick was talking about
Captain Pike.
right, so
He knows the future.
yeah, he knows he knows the future. So yes, so
he's taken risks.
he has taken risks.
I mean, he knows that he's understanding the situation with the Gorn and how to kind of game them. And you have to and that you have to take some risks, but he's willing to take some risks because he knows about the future.
Right. But he has to worry about his crew because he doesn't, as Patrick was saying, he doesn't know the crew's going to die. Yeah. So on the one hand, he kind of took a risk because Lon was saying they're outgunned. And then she was like, it's time to run. And Spock was like, I concur, but if we leave the brown dwarf, they will see us. If we go deeper, it could destroy the ship. And Pike's all like, good thinking, Mr. Spock. We need to go deeper into the brown dwarf. And Spock's like, that is not what I suggested. Right, That was another lull moment I had. I thought that was pretty funny. But that was a moment where it was like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. So that was a pretty big risk. But you can see how super bummed Pike was about sealing the bulkheads and losing that crew person.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. And I liked this exchange when Spock said, you made the logical choice, and Pike's like, why doesn't it feel like this? And then Spock goes, for the same reason you made it, because you value life. Right. It's like the same reason we do good things are the same reason that unfortunate things happen. Unfortunate things happen. Like if you have a person that's a good leader, they're often a control freak, and so you wonder, well, why can't they just be a good leader without being a control freak? Not that Pike's a control freak. I'm just giving an unrelated example. Just the idea, you can't separate the two. They go hand in hand. The reason you do one is the reason you do the other. So I thought that was
it's sort of like you think that's like an example of how the Vulcans, like, when they're all feeling bad and they use like their logic and they're like to explain some shit, and it's like, oh, well, you did it because that's what you do. Like,
yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I don't feel so bad anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they have to...
When they talk about, like, I would use rigorous logic to help me through my dismay.
Right. That's their emotional support is logic.
Like, so they just kind of explain it away, and they're like, okay, yeah, I don't feel so bad anymore, right? It's like, I did that shit because I'm doing a good job.
Right. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. I mean, it's like, put emotions aside. The best we got is numbers here or something.
Right.
That kind of thing. We should probably take a quick break and then finish up.
Is there more Patrick recordings?
There is more Patrick recordings. How many we played? We played 3?
I think so.
Yeah, there's 2 more.
All right.
All right, taking a break. Okay, we're back. All right, so we're going to play the 4th recording.
Recording.
We have played 3, right?
I think so. You're the one playing them.
You're the one playing them.
I'm not doing anything but responding.
Yeah, we did play 3.
I'm sitting over here. I'm the color commentary.
Okay, this is the 4th one.
All right, Patrick here again. You have probably already discussed the comparisons between other, sort of like the submarine naval action.
Yeah, we did.
On here.
Whoa, we did.
That's in some ways a reference to Balance of Terror, which was sort of set up as a submarine against submarine sort of thing. Wrath of Khan is one of the key examples of that.
We did second this.
And what I really like that they did here, that was a little different from those other examples in which we see both sides. We don't see both sides here. We don't see the Gorn. Some people might say that detracts from the story, but I think we're going to be hearing more about the Gorn later. That's my view.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
It's going to be a slow roll into learning more about the Gorn. Maybe they're the big bad of the season. And so what it does is it really raises the tension, because if you'll notice, we not only do we not see the Gorn, we don't generally see their ships too clearly, but we understand the strategy. From the perspective of Pike and the Enterprise, right? We understand what they're trying to do. They're hiding. They're dealing with this atmospheric pressure. They're banking on the fact that their ship can hold up better than the Gorn ships, and it turns out, at least for the smaller Gorn ships, that that's true. But I really like that vibe of the audience being along for the ride with the crew, of not entirely knowing what's going on. Notice we see some things from outside the ship, but most of that's a little later on, particularly early on. And there's a scene in sickbay, for example, when the pressure starts getting to the ship, the people are looking around. They don't know what the fuck is going on. They're trying to, deal with the emergencies in front of them, and there's creaking and loud sounds and shaking sounds. And that was a really effective way of conveying the the stress that they're going through, which I think is an exciting presentation and what made this a thoroughly enjoyable episode.
Yes, agreed.
Isn't it great that we're all on the same page and we sort of touched on a little bit of this already?
Yeah.
And then he comes through and sort of seconds it.
Validates us. Right.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Because I think I said a little bit about how they're, they're making them very alien. Like, okay, you don't even see what they look like in this episode, and their ships look all weird, and nobody knows what they look like except for Khan Jr. And you don't even in the mind meld, when you see the mind meld, you don't see a Gorn.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. They didn't show you the Gorn in the mind meld.
And the TOS episode with the Gorn in their timeline is happens like in the next decade or something. So
yeah.
So like nobody who's ever seen a Gorn like lives to tell about it. So no one's seen a Gorn.
Seen a Gornagander. Gorn again.
Gorn again.
I'm a Gorn again Gorn. No, I agree with everything. Gorna getchas. So,
Gonna keep coming after you.
Oh, speaking of, that actually reminded me of his past, basically talking about, and his Patrick's past clip. His past clip, way in the past.
It's been Patrick's past
clips. Way in the past. Patrick's past clips. Come to the past with Patrick's past clips. With the blade past. Go fast. He was talking about the colonists. I don't think the colonists were holograms. I don't think they were. I think...
Okay.
Yeah, because I actually like...
It was not clear to me.
Yeah, it wasn't too clear to me. And when you brought it up, it actually made me wonder, because that was a good point you made. But I read two separate recaps just now, and the only mention of holograms is it says Spock scans detects a hologram near the second moon.
Okay.
And so
that was the only hologram.
Yeah, and I'm still not clear what that hologram was supposed to... I guess the hologram was just a distraction or something, but I'm not really... I wasn't quite clear on that. But what they did say the hologram, the colonists, is bait. They wanted us to be vulnerable. So what I think it was, because at the beginning of the episode, they showed all that blood on the ground, right? So the blood was of the
There
colonists.
was a little bit of blood, yeah.
Well, it was a lot of fucking blood being drawn, like those big lines of blood on the ground. So...
there was some puddles, too.
Puddles of blood.
Puddles of blood.
Not puddles of mud.
No.
So I think they just left the holograms. The colonists stranded there.
Holograms.
What they meant is that they left the colonists, the holograms stranded.
The holonists.
The hologram scrambled there. They left the hologram stranded there. Stranded there.
Skibbly-bams.
As a distraction, and then they had as a bait, and then they had the hologram from the second moon that I guess did something that I wasn't too clear on, but
yeah, right.
But yeah, but those colonists, I wouldn't also. It seemed like maybe they were holograms because those colonists did just kind of exit the episode. It was just like you have this professor shows up. The episode, so they all just kind of left the episode.
They just got blasted.
I don't know. I'm not really,
because all of a sudden the Gorn showed up and Leon was like, "It's the fucking Gorn," and the Gorn came in and blasted like their trans space tube or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, right, because they couldn't put up the shields because of that. Yeah. So I'm wondering if there was an extra scene in there transitioning.
And Pike is like, "Oh no."
Yeah, that was good. You really got that sense. He was like, fuck. I'm wondering if there was an extra scene they filmed that transitioned from that to the chase, because they kind of jumped from the bridge, like you said, the Tubi bridge, and then they jumped straight to the chase, and it's kind of what happened in between. But maybe they cut it because it's, we can kind of assume what happens.
It got edited out.
It got edited out. It got edited out. It got edited out. You're gonna say it. You're gonna go boo. It got edited out. Speaking of madness on the on sickbay, the sickbay madness. Yeah, that was a crazy scene, right?
Well, there were several scenes.
Yeah, there was several.
But it was always chaos. And sickbay sustained a direct hit from one of those blasts.
Yes.
So there was instant damage to sickbay. They were messed up early on.
Yeah, Nurse Chapel is really interesting. The look they gave her. Something about her hair and her outfit, how they match, something makes her look like...
Oh, yeah, her hair's all white.
Yeah, something about her looks synthetic or something far out. She
looks like a cartoon.
A cartoon. Did you say a carzoom?
Cartoon.
I thought you said a carzoom. No, she looks like a cartoon. And in fact, she kind of reminds me of that. Remember that movie Heavy Metal? That cartoon that movie, if you want to call it a cartoon animated movie,
It was
Heavy
from the
Metal.
70s or something.
Yeah, it kind
80s,
of
perhaps.
it kind of reminded me. There's a particular character it kind of reminds me of slightly, but this just sort of like the whole vibe of this sort of surreal. She kind of looks surreal. It's weird how she looks. I'm not saying bad. I think it's cool. I like it.
They changed up Nurse Chapel to make her more like
Future
contemporary,
yeah,
as opposed to like the 60s Nurse Chapel.
Yeah. They made her hair all white and stand still, and it's all crazy. She looks like a robot or something. Maybe she's a robot. Maybe the big reveal will be a robot.
Maybe she's a robot.
Maybe she's a robot.
Maybe she's a robot.
Maybe she's a robot. When they're talking about how she's like, there's something in her aorta or whatever.
Yeah.
She's all telling Una she's gonna bleed a lot. That freaked me out. And then
and then like sepsis.
Yeah.
She's
So
like,
well, go ahead.
What did she say? It's like
Chapel.
Giving birth out your mouth.
Right, yes. Yeah, she goes, we can take bets on when septic shock will begin. I hear it's like giving birth out your mouth, which is hilarious because Una's response was great. It's like, who says something like that? She's like, well, me?
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny because it's a hilarious exchange, but it's also kind of it feels like a commentary, which is often on ridiculous dialogue. Just like it feels like giving birth out your mouth. It's like, what the fuck, Why?
That's a fucked up thing to say.
Yeah,
giving birth out your mouth.
Yeah, it's that's
especially if you're like the nurse in sickbay.
Yeah, that's a fucked up thing.
It's like, why would you say that?
Why would you say that?
It's like, well, because I'm sassy Nurse Chapel.
Right. So. Yeah, and then Una gives, she's like gonna get some plasma or something to make her feel better, but then she's demanded they give it to
like
someone
blood,
else.
Yeah.
And Mbega's like, you're gonna lose a massive amount of blood, and then she does the whole "that's an order" thing, which to remind people, I guess, is like every time I hear someone say "that's an order," I wonder if it's a warranted to say that's an order. And I felt that this was overly dramatic, a little dramatic when she was like, she's like, give him the plasma. And he's like, you're going to bleed a lot. She's like, that's an order. I thought she could have just said like, do it, motherfucker. She could have just said, do it. She didn't have to say that's an order. Like, of course they know it's an order. It was unnecessary. There was no question. There was no risk of them not listening to her.
There's not a lot of blood in Star Trek. And, like there's blood doesn't happen. Like a lot of the weapons just kind of burn you up. The medical technology is such that they're not cutting into you. They're not, draining your blood. They don't take your blood. They just scan you. They're giving her like a blood transfusion or something. They're giving her like a physical blood transfusion where like they don't seem to have to do that in Star Trek. Typically, that's like an old school thing to do.
Yeah,
and because the damage they have sustained, their systems are down, and so they're having to do like this more primitive stuff. That's what the point I'm making.
Yeah, they had to like sew her up. I never like always seeing scenes where they're like there was a lot more that they don't show people like graphic medical stuff in Star Trek. Yeah, it's usually like a hypo spray or they
exactly.
shoot them with some laser.
There's a hyper spray. There's a scanner. There's a this kind of scanner. There's that kind of scanner. There's a they're not like. They never get into the sort of the cold actual like physicality of like, yeah, you're going to bleed a lot.
Yeah, right.
Nobody's ever said that in Star Trek. Like,
right. Yeah, that is
at least that I can remember.
Well, this whole episode is spooky. Like the bloody ground from when the Gorn kill the colonists is spooky. The music is spooky. The mysterious Gorn shit is spooky. Everything's just fucking spooky. There was that dude that everyone was laughing at that dude because he was scared by a dog that itself was probably scared and miserable, and and he was like, that's messed up, right? Like he's like, that's not funny, and like they're all laughing at him, and it's like, no, it's not funny. This dog is fucked up, and it's like, and you're scared, and it's like, it's all spooky. It makes me feel all spooked out.
Just think how that dog feels.
Yeah,
you know how those humans feel. How that dog feels.
Yeah, but anyways, to the question of that's an order, I don't know. I felt that there was an overly dramatic use of that's an order, because you would say that's an order if somebody was, if there was a threat that person was going to disobey your order, but they weren't going to disobey your order. They were looking out for her. They were like, this is going to hurt. And she's like, that's an order. She could have just said, she should have just said, no, I'm cool with that, man. Just do it though. Hurry up,
That concludes this week's installment of That's an Order.
It's time to stop this installment. And that, my friend, is in order. Okay, we'll play the last Patrick clip here. We're running short on time here.
Are we really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
All right, I just want to address one controversy that I think has been brought up. It's not a big controversy, but I've seen it online in some of the various forums, is the portrayal of the Gorn. And there's been an argument that the portrayal of the Gorn as sort of bloodthirsty, monstrous creatures in this episode goes somewhat against what we learned in the original series episode that introduced the Gorn, Arena, where the Metrons trapped Kirk and a Gorn captain, and they were forced to battle it out. Kirk does not kill the Gorn. He, in fact, refuses to kill the Gorn captain even after he's defeated him. And that's what lets the Metrons know that the humans or the Federation are not complete pieces of shit and lets them go. All right. And in that episode, we learn that the Gorn, while bloodthirsty in a sense, they believed from their perspective that their actions were justified to protect themselves. And it does seem a little bit different in Strange New Worlds. But I want to point out that what all the information we get about the Gorn from this episode primarily is from La'an. And it's from the perspective of her memories, her traumatic memories of being a child and seeing her family get murdered by these creatures, from her perspective, these monsters. And it's not to discount her memories or her experience, but it is just really experience of one person. And I would buy into the argument that if they pursue this and the Gorn continue to be portrayed as purely bloodthirsty, monstrous creatures, that yes, I wouldn't be as big a fan of that. I think that would be, missing out on some of the message of Star Trek.
I
suspect, however, probably that's not what's happening. Probably they're setting us up through La'an, priming us to think of them as these evil, bloodthirsty creatures, but that as things move along, we might learn a little bit more about their motivations. Maybe not this season, maybe in the future. We'll see. I think it's a good thing that people have pointed that out, and we'll have to see where it goes. I'm not yet 100% convinced that they've done it wrong yet. I think they might be setting us up as an audience to go one way, and then they're going to sort of pull the rug out and reveal, oh no, there are strategic and defensive reasons why the Gorn have been behaving the way they have been.
Yeah. I think you could argue, whether the writers intended this or not, you could argue that that's the position Pike is taking, is that of the audience. Going back to the meeting where La'an, they're all hot and spicy, and La'an is in that spicy hot room.
Hot and spicy. From
all the ionized lava gas.
Or ionized peppers.
Yeah, the ionized lava peppers.
What?
I don't know. When La'an's all like, they're gonna fuck us up, they're predators, they're gonna eat us, we're all gonna die. Oh my God, we gotta do something now. And Pike is all like, hey, dude, have some hope, man. I think the unspoken thing is they all kind of look at her when she's talking about how the Gorn are. She's basically saying you can't negotiate with them. They're gonna fuck you up. They just want to get us. They're fucked up. And she doesn't, without saying they're evil, she essentially says, well, maybe she doesn't even say they're evil. She just says they're monsters.
They've all been trained a certain way to be like, we have to try to reach a common ground with
precisely
people. We don't, if we don't understand something, it doesn't mean we have to to fucking destroy it. We need to understand it.
Right. Precisely. Exactly. And
they're all like, just like, wow, like this, but then again, they don't have any experience with the Gorn, and most people don't, because if you do, you die.
Yeah.
And so La'an is the only one that knows. And so they just don't get it because they don't know.
Right. And that's why that points to what Patrick was saying about how they haven't done wrong yet, as what he was like. He was saying the
Right,
audience complaint
right.
was that they portrayed the Gorn as ruthless monsters, and they haven't done that yet. And some evidence of that could be the way Pike responds to her, basically, because he starts off when she's like, "It's the Gorn" in that scene, and like she flips out at him because he began the sentence basically saying, "Look, this is it's rare to have a first meeting with people, and we need to do this right." And she's like, "You got to run away, got to run away." And she had the right idea at that time. That was the right strategy at that moment. But Pike was expressing, like what you said, Starfleet's sort of philosophy of got to understand things. And then later in the meeting, when she's just like, they're monsters, she starts talking all this shit like they're not. You can't negotiate with them, whether you can or you can't. Strange New Worlds has yet to tell us what their take on that yet. But Pike's reaction would be in support of the audience being like, hey, we don't know that. Like when he tells her to give her hope, he's kind of also saying like, you're getting a little harsh. You're getting a little negative. I know you're harsh in my mellow, man. I know that you have some horrible history, and we're not making light of that, and we shouldn't, because it was horrible, and we can't judge your experience. That doesn't change the fact that there might be some level of hope, not just to survive, but to negotiate. And I think that's kind of what he was saying, is like, have some hope that there's some possibility that we can come to a common ground at some point. And so I think it is, so far it's just been like, this is La'an's point of view because she has a very solid reason for thinking that way. Yeah. And Pike's point of view is more of Starfleet, and that's why everyone else was kind of freaked out, because she was like, they're not used to hearing someone take the attitude of like, fuck these things, they're monsters, Yeah. And who knows what direction they'll take, but I think that's.
But it's a very Star Trek thing. The Klingons were the enemies for a time, and then they weren't. They were
right.
They were allies.
And then
for a time with the Federation,
and then they just went AWOL in Discovery.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
What happens with the fucking Klingons? But then, even with like the Romulans were like the enemies, like strong enemies for a long time, and then they weren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we could see a thing where like there's because they just haven't done a lot with the Gorn to develop the Gorn at all. So now's their chance. We'll see what happens. That we can see like the Gorn.
I mean,
some Gorn nuance.
I mean, yeah, and I guess the trick is there was never the only species that really never got we never gained an understanding. Starfleet never gained an understanding with is the Borg. The Borg were kind of like, the Borg weren't monsters. They were
the Tholians.
The Borgs were. They were. Say what?
What's the Tholians?
Oh yeah, what were the Tholians all about? I can't remember.
The ones that was the what they had the web and like the they trapped that ship. The Tholian.
Oh yeah, Tholian. Oh yeah, web. I was thinking like a literal spider web. No, yeah, right, exactly. No, well, I was thinking more like prominent characters. I guess the Tholians do kind of count, but they're a little bit more side characters, aren't they? I don't know. The Borg.
Just one episode.
Yeah, it was just the Borg we had extended interaction with the Borg, and we never
Lots of Borg.
And the Borg are just kind of like they're about consuming, basically. Are they monsters? I don't know if you could say they're monsters. They're about consumption,
right. Like absorbing.
They're absorbing. Now they don't look like scary fanged monsters like the Gorn, but you give them spiky teeth in cartoons and TV shows, and that means they're monster evil guys.
It's a different kind of terror.
Yeah.
Terror.
But we never got to a full understanding. Terror. We never got to a full understanding with the Borg, and so you could say that in TNG they never established any kind of understanding with the Borg, really. But I guess the difference is that how it was originally presented, and I guess the Gorn were originally presented as not being monsters. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what direction. People are so caught up in keeping with canon, and I think there's a solid argument for keeping up with canon, just so you know there's some rules in place. But I think people get really obsessed with it sometimes.
Canon is in flux, man.
Yeah, canon is in max flux. So we should wrap this up. I think we should talk about Spock a couple times, unless you want to talk about something.
Yeah. Well, what about Spock? About the mind meld?
Well, the mind meld. So, boy, have I got some opinions on mind melds.
Yeah, what about these opinions?
I think the mind meld is...
The mind meld.
It's under...
mind meld.
It's underutilized in the way in Star Trek in a certain kind of way. Now it's utilized, it's overutilized in the sense that they kind of substitute it as space magic. It's like, oh, I can just
it's a space magic.
Yeah, right. And so but it's like, oh, I can talk to this person from on the other side of space and go into this virtual world with them, or I can do whatever. I can do this, that. I can do all sorts of things.
Oh yeah, they did that in Discovery. It was super space magic.
Right. And so I think that a more like restrained use of the mind meld, which I think, something that I think is underutilized is the concept of what it means to meld minds with somebody. Mind melds should be the key to full empathy, basically.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of our problems in this world are due to a lack of understanding of others in a lot of ways,
pretty
right?
Much.
There are realities of scarcity that cause, violence and stuff. There's those, but then there's also just a lot of issues caused. So many issues caused because we just don't understand someone else. Misunderstandings. We don't understand how someone else has grown up, and there's so many differences from how people count. Even like how people count numbers or something from one side of, how they use their fingers to represent numbers. I mean, point being is there's such wildly different perspectives in the world, and it's beautiful that there are different perspectives because it's like, wow, look at all this possibility that can happen. There's not one way. How limiting to think there's one way. There's so many ways. But the problem is a lot. Well, the issue at hand is that a lot of wars fucking happen because people are so scared by a way that's other than the one way that they know, when it should be celebrated to realize there's so much possibility out there, you know? And that should be encouraging. And so the mind meld, I feel, should be, should or shouldn't, whatever. I just don't think they talk enough about mind melds. They should have the potential to eliminate the differences in thought that divide us and tribalize us, right? Because people talk about it's hard enough to know yourself. How are you ever going to know somebody else? How do you ever look at someone else's from someone else's perspective? How do I know how you see things? I don't. I'll never know how you see things, right? You can communicate it with me and I can get a pretty good idea, but there are just ways you see the world that I'll never understand and ways I see the world you'll never understand. It's not that you're not capable of understanding if presented with it. It's just we don't know. Like there's certain parts of us that are forever going to be trapped in our heads and we just can't share it. It's the great problem we have is understanding and getting along with other people.
We saw with this mind meld how they both reached a point where they were like, yeah, we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
And then Spock was like, yeah, I'm not going to go there. We're going to end this. We should end this mind meld.
Well, yeah. Lon did some literal mind judo on him and turned, because he was the one in control. He's like, this is my mind meld. I'm in control. And she turned it around and it made him feel uncomfortable. He's like,
what's all this about your sister? And he was like, oh no, this is done.
Let's get out of it. Yeah. But, The mind meld gives us the power to do something that we've been looking to seeking our whole lives, which is just to understand how someone else thinks, and no one else is fully able to see from someone else's perspective, and a mind meld would provide someone that. So I just feel like what a revelation it must be to meld minds with another human being. It must be
or a Vulcan.
Or another person in general. Anyone. To a fucking cat. Who knows? It was just to be such an enlightening experience, and they don't really talk about that much in Star Trek as how enlightening it is. It's more used as a plot device to be magic to get things done.
Right.
They have done it they have done it on occasion, but it's like I just feel like it's such a profound idea, sharing a mind with somebody. That's like finding I'm not saying whether you believe in God or not, it's like the equivalent of finding some form of complete God of understanding. Just this, it would be so fulfilling, I think, to get that perspective. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's usually Spock doing the mind meld or Sarek. Other Vulcan characters, I guess there's been a little bit of mind meld here and there, but it's mostly Spock doing it.
But you'd think that the person he mind melded with, like La'an, suddenly she would gain the perspective of another person, and that only would she.
Well, perhaps she does, and perhaps that's dealt with in later episodes. Stuff that she's learned from Spock.
Yeah, I think that but they don't ever. And historically, all they do is say like it helps you. It's like seeing a psychologist.
They'll still have a connection. I mean, you still have a connection with some. If you mind meld with someone, that there's a ongoing, you know, there's some kind of connection to this person because you understand so much,
right?
Because you just looked into their mind too.
Exactly, but they don't. I don't think they address that in Star Trek as much as historically they haven't addressed it as much as I think I would have.
I understand. No, yeah, I understand what you're saying. They touch on it. They do not. They do not fully address it
because because like it's for La'an it's like the role of the psychologist is Spock's mind meld basically, and so it's used to solve her problem and come up with the thing and find the thing, but. Like the lasting side effect is that I understand. I have a different. Remember that part when they were talking about Pike was talking about Spock. You just turned a compass into a radar when Spock used some technobabble to talk about like finding like locations and instead of a compass points the way, right? If you had two compasses and
points north.
It basically used a triangulation and a compass. If you had I know it points north, but if you had two compasses, that would essentially be triangulating, right?
Would you say come by?
If you had one person with a compass and one person 20 miles down the road with a compass, you could triangulate a point through that.
With an azimuth.
So that would be like a radar. But the point being is you're gaining a third dimension through another perspective is what you having more compasses, more data involved. So it's true. I mean, you know?
No, it is. I'm sorry. I'm in a silly mood.
Yeah. Anyways, I just think the side effect would just be like, wow, I understand. I'm not trapped in my own singular perspective. I can triangulate perspectives through gaining access to somebody else's compass. Can I touch your compass?
Someone brought this up to me, and it was about we haven't seen. I don't think we've seen too much when they do a mind meld. You don't usually see like the sort of the action. You can see people like a lot of the times when Spock was just mind melding with someone, he was just touching them on the face.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, and maybe I'm just not remembering. There might be some other instance of a mind meld, and there's like actually see what's happening inside of their minds.
Yeah,
but in this one, like you're seeing stuff what's happening inside their mind.
The only thing I can immediately think of is in Discovery. Didn't Burnham talk to Sarek from across the galaxy or something?
Yeah, there was that.
But that was more surreal.
Because that was more just some kind of Vulcan magic.
Yeah, this was actual flashback. Yeah, an action flashback, and I don't know I've seen that. Can't think of a time of that.
They were digging into her, subconscious.
I'm sure they've done it before. That she had
stored away. It seems like they've done something similar. Possibly,
I can't think of it.
I just can't think of anything. Put my finger on it. But it hasn't happened a lot.
Yeah.
So this is one time where it was super, super illustrated.
Yeah. When La'an was talking about the flashes that those Gorn were making, when she figured out before they did the mind meld, she's like
Bjorn Borg.
The Bjorn Borg. She's basically like, I've seen these lights before. I know there's something about these lights. I recognize it.
She knows. She just blocked it out.
Yeah,
it was so terrible.
But Spock's response was, the mind is complex. When faced with intense trauma, it can manifest intricate defenses to aid survival. Did Spock just gaslight her? I think he just gaslighted her. Gaslit? She said she remembered those lights, and Spock was just like, nah, you're just imagining shit because you're fucked up. That's basically what Spock said. I don't know. It seemed like he was gaslighting her there.
Yeah, kind of.
But she was right. I also liked the part when she was like asking him to talk in plain English, because usually it's like when somebody says some complicated shit, the response is in English, man, and it's like that gets kind of old. But she was like, "Do you ever speak in plain English?" And I thought it was a good variation on it was a nice variation on the speak English, man, in English, man. Like I like the variation because that's all it takes sometimes. Just you don't have to express a different concept. Just change up the dialogue a little so we're not hearing the same cliches over and over. And they did that. And I thought it worked, and I liked it, and I liked that Spock got all like fucking irritated when she said that.
I thought it was interesting because they don't usually say that what they're speaking is English.
Yeah, that's actually that's an interesting point.
It's usually more. I mean, if they ever refer to it, it's just understood that it's sort of the basic common language. But however, English is is essentially the basic common language. People from all over the world learn English as a business language,
But maybe if they were the universal translator, like if there was someone who spoke Klingonese in there, maybe it would translate to them as, do you ever just speak in plain Klingonese? You know what I mean? Like maybe it depends on who it's talking to.
I think it's just Klingon. I don't think it's
okay.
Klingonese.
Well, Klingonian?
Klingon. It's just Klingon.
Klingon. Anyway, however or not they decide to translate the selected language,
Do
maybe
they ever speak like a Vulcan language?
I don't know.
They have funny words for things.
Sure, I'm sure they will. Anyways, I
like have like mock talk.
Anyways, I like gach. Yeah, they have. Yeah, I don't know. Ponfar. They say Ponfar.
They got Ponfar and they got
Anyways, I just like that they did a variation on the in English thing, and they said, I appreciate that they just changed up the wording a little bit. And, I like that Spock got all pissed off about it. He was just like, and then he brought it up later. She's like, I'm gonna go on the shuttle to do some shit, and Spock's like, as will I. To put it in plain English, you will need backup. He was like rubbing it in her face.
Yeah,
he was that really pissed. He gave her like a death look.
I know.
And good old Spock. I think
young sassy Spock.
I wonder if people like Spock, this incarnation of Spock.
People seem to like him.
It's what's the guy?
Oh, do you mean people in real life or people on the crew?
No, people in real life.
Because people in that ship like Spock. He's a popular dude.
Ethan Peck. Do people like Ethan Peck as Spock? I'm sure a lot of people don't.
So I don't know what's not to like.
I don't either, but a lot of people.
It's a good Spock.
I mean, Leonard Nimoy is
Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy. One of the articles I read was commenting on how Spock says sensors, like Ethan Peck says sensors, just like Leonard Nimoy did.
Oh well, he should.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people think it's blasphemous. It's like it'll never be Leonard Nimoy, and it won't. It will never be Leonard Nimoy. It'll never be Leonard Nimoy, and that's just the way it is. So can we just live?
That's not the point of the show. This is the point of this show is it's a contemporary show.
Yeah. And right. And so I think a lot of people have a problem.
Fresh actors.
And a lot of people have a problem with that because they think they should just move on to something else, which I understand the idea that you don't want to keep lingering in the past, but at the same time, why not have Spock? I mean, as Patrick pointed out about how it was the episode Menagerie, I think Patrick pointed that out. We're left to wonder why it is that Spock cared so much about Pike in Menagerie.
Right.
And so, well, this is providing...
We're going to find out.
This is what's filling in that backstory, so I think it's relevant. I don't think it's simply a member of artifact of nostalgia to have Spock. It's relevant.
I think I mentioned that before when we were talking about this show about how we're gonna find out why Spock knows exactly what's going on with Pike and starts acting all weird and stuff. Yeah, totally.
So
exactly what you said. So
exactamundo. Is there anything else to talk about?
Let's see. Odds and ends. We played all the Patrick clips. Slingshot around a black hole.
Slingshot around a black hole.
I don't know. It was cool. The Gorn ships got picked off one by one. One just sacrificed itself. It was part of their gambit. One, it turned out couldn't handle the pressure. One, they were all sneaky and they got to shoot on the other one. One got to destroy the other one.
There was that big old. I always like when a big old ship shows up.
Yeah, it was a super huge, scary ship, and it was shaped all funny, all asymmetrically and nubbly weird. Yeah,
it was all goofy. How do they get from? You ever look at those ships and wonder how the most inconvenient place to have to go to when you're on one of those ships? You know how in high school you have the locker? I never used my locker in high school, but you know how you
right,
because
it was way over there somewhere.
Yeah, it's I got to get to this class, which means I got to go across the school and then back again. It's what's the worst place to have to be? Two places to be to get from A to B. They probably just transport at that point. But do you ever think that brown dwarf sounds like poop? And when they dove into the brown dwarf, it sounds like they dove into poop. Yeah, like the Klingons around.
Yeah, anything with
the Klingons
brown,
around your anus.
Yeah.
That was a good addition I had just then.
I was thinking about lockers. You made me.
Yeah.
Locker flashback horror.
Flashback what? Horror. Yeah, that's a hard word to say.
Horror.
Well, I think that's I think
you were saying? I'm sorry.
I think that's all.
I think that's it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's been Star Trek.
Vinci 7.
We did a fairly decent job. I suppose next week Patrick is back. We'll have a normal sort of podcast.
We'll have more organization.
We'll bring our guitars and we'll start wailing.
We'll bring with it more organization, more knowledge, more
a little bit more structure,
more commentary based upon the history of Star Trek, how as it compares to now. More just sort of like analyzation that comes from a deep understanding and encyclopedic knowledge of the series. We'll bring more of that. As opposed to.
Well, I think we did a good job with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I could have done without the line about poop.
We weren't lacking. Well, that's different.
That's different. Yeah. Well, I'm looking through my notes, and I don't think I missed anything. Don't worry, we'll cut some of this out. Dead space out.
It's gonna get edited out.
Edited out. Even what I'm saying right now.
It's gonna get edited out.
It's gonna get edited out. It's gonna get edited out. When you got some clout and you are in doubt. Edit it out. All right, so we should go on the website to see the Star Trek podcast that you can't see, but you can listen to. You can see it with your ears.
You can watch it on YouTube.
You can, but there's nothing to watch.
There's a graphic.
There's a graphic, but at some point we should have some cameras set up or something because people like looking at cameras.
At some point, we're going to do a video.
People like
some kind of video.
People like
there will be something to watch.
What people like on YouTube, I think, is people like video and they like short clips.
It'll be something short. We do.
They like 5 to 10 minute video clips of things.
Yeah, we'll do some shorts on something. It might not even be Star Trek. We might just be like baking a cake or something.
Bacon cake?
Bacon cake.
Do you think there's a bacon cake?
Fake and bake.
There is bacon cake. Of course, there's a bacon cake.
Fake and steak.
How do you make bacon cake?
Bacon cake?
Pecans and bacon drippings?
What?
Sounds sweet and weird. Okay,
I think this is it, man.
Yeah, there's no time to get off track at this point. No more dilly-dallying. We've dilly-dallied enough. So yeah, you go on itsgotstartrek.com where you can you go at itsgotstartrek.com where you can organize by series. You can go on Twitter, which is the preferred method of communication, I'm gathering, or Instagram. I don't even know if we do Instagram anymore.
I think there's something.
Yeah. There's Facebook /Meta/whatever, but I don't really.
Apple Podcast.
I've been staying away from Meta lately. I don't know. Apple Podcasts. There's Stitcher. There's Pocket Casts. There's
Jobber.
There's podcast
Jibber Jabs.
Podcast to spell. There should be a podcast.
Castaroni.
There's a magic podcast to spell. Castaroni with pasta podcast sauce.
Podcast to snippety snakes.
You got to podcast to size that wound. Or you don't want to do that. I don't know. So you go at It's Got Star Trek.
You don't want your cancer to podcast to size.
No, you don't want that. So It's Got Star Trek. You better listen to this shit or else you're not for real, man. I'm gatekeeping reality right now. In order to be real, you got to listen to us. This is such a, it feels useless to say this because, like, if they're listening to us, it's like they're already, people we're talking to are people that are already listening
They're already listening, or like that. If we said that, like, they're going to stop listening.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I know.
Okay, that's it, guys.
Okay, just tell your friends and shit, get them to listen. And then we can all be happy and mind meld together.
Refer a friend.
Have some kind of, unified experience where we get to, like, can you do a group mind meld? Let's do a group mind meld. All become one and feel the greatest ecstasy we've ever known by listening to the It's Got Star Trek podcast with Jesse, Patrick, and Dan.
Yep.
Anything else?
That's it, baby.
All right, we will see you later.
Smell you later.
3 on 1. Not good. We're outgunned. Time to run, sir.
I concur. But if we leave the Brandorf, they will see us. If we go deeper, it could destroy the ship.
Good thinking, Mr. Spock. We need to go deeper into the brown dwarf.
That is not what I suggested.